significant overreaction. The question is how we get to a point where they get to a point where there is a significant reduction in the attacks, particularly the rocket attacks that are indiscriminately fired into population centers.
Kimberly Halkett is our White House correspondent, reporting live for the news hour this hour. Kimberly, hi there. So what's the White House calculation here, Kimberly, when it comes to pushing back on this diplomacy?
Well, the reasoning that we're hearing is that the feeling of the White House right now is that a meeting at the United Nations level would not be productive. And here's why. There are a number of diplomatic outreaches that have taken place or are taking place by the Biden administration with respect to a top-level envoy in the region, meeting with both the Israeli as well as Palestinian leadership. As well, there is also an outreach to partners in the region, such as Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, all working as a sort of a channel to Hamas in order to try and bring about a reduction in violence. And the feeling of the White House is that this is a process that needs time to work. And so that is why, presumably, the White House is pushing back for now on any sort of meeting at the United Nations, even though it was suggested by China, Norway, and Tunisia. Having said that, the White House has not ruled out the possibility of that meeting taking place, say, next week, but it appears for now they are hoping to try and bring about a de-escalation through diplomatic channels.
Is the US going to unequivocally condemn what's going on?
Well, I asked the White House press secretary about that because, as you'll notice, the statements coming out of the Biden administration this week have been condemning of rocket attacks and also that Israel has a right to self-defense. But missing from those statements is whether or not Palestinians have that same right, and will the administration condemn the evictions of Palestinians from occupied East Jerusalem? Here's what the White House press secretary had to say.
Not have in the statement that Palestinians also have a right to self-defense.
Are the attacks not coming from Hamas? Do you consider Hamas the Palestinian leadership?
Let me rephrase the question then. You've repeatedly in the statements condemned the rocket attacks. Does the White House, does the Biden administration also condemn the evictions of Palestinians from their homes in occupied?
We have spoken to that in our readouts, and certainly our national security advisor has raised, and we have raised at many levels, the importance of addressing the building in these communities, and the fact that in order to move forward and move toward de-escalation, that's an important issue to address.
But the White House, in its statements, has not condemned the evictions of Palestinians, nor has it articulated clearly and plainly that Palestinians have an equal right to self-defense. And that is why members of the president's own Democratic Party are calling for that, and that pressure is growing in Washington.
Kimberly, thank you very much. Kimberly Halkett there, our White House correspondent. Brian Katulis is a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Brian Katulis, welcome to Al Jazeera. Is Israel going to invade Gaza?
I hope not, but it looks like it's taking steps to do so. And I think the fact that rockets keep being fired from Gaza, plus the security dynamics inside of Israel, the attacks and the violence between Arab and Jewish Israeli citizens, has led to this sort of law and order defensive mentality from Netanyahu. So I'm afraid that those security dynamics combined with the political dynamics inside of Israel and amongst Palestinians as well make it look like we may be in for some continued violence here, unfortunately.
Is it possible for the Israeli military to do some sort of targeted step across the border, but stop short of what would be an escalatory, big, full-on invasion?
I suppose it's possible, but I think I'd be surprised if the IDF really wants to go back in there, given its past experience. It would have to have some sort of clear goal to try to degrade the capability of some of these groups that are firing projectiles and missiles into Israeli territory. But if they crossed that line and went in, I think it would likely provoke an even broader response. So it's really, I think, not the ideal situation. The ideal situation is to work towards this de-escalation that everybody